Good evening. Welcome in to the Bruning Law Firm postgame show here on PowerMizzou.com following a 95-81 loss for Missouri to the Florida Gators. I'm Gabe DeArmond. Drew King going to join us in a little bit from Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. We've got a lot of you making comments, questions, all that in the chat. Line them up. We will get to them. Before we break down this game and look ahead to Selection Sunday, I want to remind you that we are brought to you after every Missouri game the rest of the way by the Bruning Law Firm. When you are hurting, your time matters. You need to get the relief you deserve, and you need to get it quickly so you can get back to your life. Call the Bruning Law Firm for a free consultation at 573-400-2796. Again, 573-400-2796. The Bruning Law Firm serves Missouri, Illinois, and Kansas. They have got your back. Fast and efficient. Free consultation. Tell them that Power Mizzou sent you once more. 573-400-2796. Okay, let's get to this one. 95-81 Florida. Honestly, guys, this game was decided kind of before tip-off. That is when Dennis Gates made the call not to play Mark Mitchell tonight. Mitchell left last night's game late in the first half with a right knee injury. Was listed as a game-time decision, as we told you he would be this morning. By what Drew King said from Nashville, by what they said on the television, Mark wanted to play tonight, and Gates made the call to hold him out. I don't have an issue with that decision. Tonight was not what you were playing for. Now, I understand if you watched this game and said, man, if we had Mark Mitchell, it's different. I get that. So it's frustrating. You wanted to win tonight. You didn't. Mark Mitchell might change that. So in some ways, that decision decided this game because Missouri was in a 15-2 hole at the start, and it just looked like a team that was kind of shell-shocked, that almost kind of started out thinking it didn't have a chance because its most important player wasn't on the floor. We'll get to why Mitchell is their most important player in a little bit. Missouri recovered from that, though. Like, after that 15-2 start, there were multiple times they made it a two-possession game in the second half. Florida ended on a 20-10 run. It was 75-71. So when it's 75-71, at that point, Missouri had outscored Florida 69-60, after 15-2. They couldn't get over the hump. And I'm going to do something that is always very, very unpopular with fans. I'm going to give the other team credit. I thought tonight what we saw was the difference between a top 5 team and a top 20 team. I think Missouri is a top 20 team. I think they are capable of winning games in the NCAA tournament. Maybe multiple games in the NCAA tournament. I think Florida is capable and maybe should be probably should be one of the favorites to win a national championship because they had Walter Clayton Jr. and Will Richard just absolutely bombing away in the first half. Oh, by the way, Elijah Martin. Then in the second half, when Josh Gray fouled out and Missouri had to play Jacob Cruz at center and Caleb Grill at power forward, Todd Golden just put 2 7-footers out there, and Missouri, there was nothing Missouri could do on defense. So my point is, I saw one team tonight that doesn't really have a hole. I saw another team that does have some holes and that almost overcame them. My opinion, and I read just a little bit of the message board. I've seen a few of the comments here. I think that I walk away from this SEC tournament feeling better about Missouri than I did coming into it. I think Missouri has more ways to win than I thought it had 4 days ago. And I've actually been, from what I've read, pretty impressed with the way that you guys are handling this and processing this. Because this morning, all the talk was, hey, if Mark Mitchell doesn't play, like, this is impossible. And so what I didn't want to see is then Mark Mitchell not play, Missouri get beat by 14 points, and everybody freak out, because this is what you expected when we thought Mark Mitchell wasn't going to play. And I think most people this morning thought that they would like to see Mitchell sit. And look, did he need to? I don't know. I'm not there. I've not talked to Mark. I don't know the conversations. But that's the call Gates made because next week is more important than this one. I don't think tonight really changed much of anything for Missouri. I think they've proven they're a 6 seed. I think that's probably where they belong. I think it's where they'll land. Obviously, we don't know. Weird things happen. They could be a 5. They could be a 7. We don't know. But I think they will probably be a 6 seed. They will be favored to win game 1. The team they play in round 1 will be very similar to like a Mississippi State that they just beat or Oklahoma, which they just lost to, right? So anything can happen. Then round 2 is going to be probably somebody more along the lines of a Kentucky, not quite a Florida, because I think Florida should be in the Alabama, Auburn, Houston, Duke conversation. I think Florida's that good. And Florida deserves credit tonight because Missouri kept coming. And every time Missouri made a push, Florida had an answer. Billy, if we can put the comment up from Rick about not being able to win without hitting threes, I'd like to address that. There you go. And we'll get to some of the other comments and questions in the chat. But Mizzou can't win without being able to hit threes. So I do want to say the 3-point line was the difference in the game tonight, right? Florida started 6 of 7 and 5 of 5. Now, from there on out, they only went 3 for 17. Like Florida only ended up shooting 37% from 3. But they started out 5 for 5. Missouri was 4 for 16 from 3. Can Missouri beat Florida without hitting threes? No, they cannot. But like they were in this game with 5 minutes left and points in the paint for the night. Missouri 48, Florida 48. Like they don't have a big man who can score on offense. But without Mark Mitchell, they scored 48 points in the paint. Anthony Robinson, 5 for 8 from the floor. Tamar Bates, only 7 for 18, but he was attacking all night long. Tony Perkins, 5 for 8. Those guys are getting in the paint. Missouri actually dominated the offensive glass 18-9, second chance points 20-15. So like they were scoring inside. They scored 81 points, which you thought they'd probably need a little more than that to win this game. I would have said they're going to need 90 to beat Florida, especially without Mitchell. But I mean, they can win games without hitting threes. They beat Oklahoma earlier this year. They went 4 for 12 from 3. So that's my point. They have more ways to win than I thought they did. Now, I thought coming into tonight, their way to win was Caleb Grill and Tamar Bates had to go nuts, and probably a lot of that had to come from 3-point range. Obviously, that didn't happen. They didn't win. But this team got back in this game by playing helter-skelter defense, by getting a ton of steals, by getting to the free throw line, which is a way they've won a lot of games earlier this year. To say they can't win if they don't make threes, I don't think is a fair criticism about this team, to be quite honest. I think that is the way they're at their best, but I do think they have other ways to win games. So let's hit a couple of the questions from the chat. Then we're going to go to some of the voicemails, and we'll get Drew on here. I'm guessing Drew will probably be about 15 minutes. Zach, what is the thinking with starting every offensive set with Gray holding the ball at the top of the key? Look, I agree. I agree with you. The hole on this roster, the problem on this roster is there is not a true big man who is an offensive threat. Like So tonight was so interesting because when the game got out of hand, when it was finally decided, was when Josh Gray fouled out of the game. Like Dennis Gates tried to go small and quick and cause havoc, and Todd Golden just stayed big and threw the ball over the top of the defense. So defensively, you need Josh Gray, but offensively, I mean, it is like you are playing 4 on 5. The biggest possession, one of the biggest possessions of the game, the one that really allowed Florida to jump out, it's 3-0, and Josh Gray has the ball, 3-point line extended, top of the key, and he gets it stripped, and then he just grabs the guy's face. And the announcer said they didn't think it was intentional. I honestly kind of did. I thought the flagrant was the right call. So Florida goes to the line, hits 2 free throws, then hits a 3. You've gone from 3-0 to 8-0 without touching the ball. And at 8-0, like, take away 8-0, you've got a game with 2 minutes left, so, but then, like, you put Peyton Marshall in, and let me look at what Peyton Marshall did tonight. I know he had a basket or two, but he had 4 points on 2 of 3 shooting, but 2 rebounds, 2 fouls, 1 turnover in 8 minutes. Honestly, that line's not as bad as I thought, but, like, Peyton Marshall isn't ready to help you win an NCAA tournament game. He just isn't. Aiden Shaw came in and 0 for 2 and a rebound in 10 minutes. Like, he didn't give you tonight what he gave you last night, right? And offensively, that's not Aiden Shaw's strength. So if Mark Mitchell's not on the floor, they do not have a front court player who can score. That does not mean they can't score in the paint, but they don't have a front court player who can score in the paint or who really is even an offensive threat. I mean, Josh Gray airballed a layup on a breakaway, and so many times him and Marshall are bringing the ball down, even if it's not a turnover, the ball's getting stripped and changing. I agree. I mean, but the flip side is, if a guy's out there, like, you can't just say, don't touch the ball. You can't play with only 4 guys touching the ball on offense. I don't think. Maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe they need to. But it's like, yeah, that's a big hole on this team. And I don't know if they thought Josh Gray would be a little more offensively. I don't think they should have, because, the numbers tell you what Josh Gray is. And Dennis has said all year he wants him to rebound and play defense. So I don't think they were counting on Josh Gray for more offense. I don't really think they were counting on Peyton Marshall or Trent Burns to be ready. So I don't know. Maybe they just thought, hey, we don't need it. We shoot the ball. We'll shoot the ball so well. Mitchell is good enough. Maybe we don't need that other guy. One thing that you would like to see for next year is, if you were going to play with a big guy, he needs to be an offensive threat. If you, not like 15, 20 points a game, but give me 6, and be able to make 2 layups and 2 free throws and not turn the ball over. But if you put a guy, and I'm not even talking Alex Condon or Micah Handlogden like Florida has, but just a kind of semi-competent offensive big guy next to Mark Mitchell, you're really excited about what Mark Mitchell could be next year, to be honest. All right, let's hit one more from the chat, and then jump to the voicemail line. I know we've got a lot of people calling in. Okay, Danny, I think I kind of just answered this. Did Peyton Marshall show he can be used in a winning effort? Not to me. It was out of necessity. You got away with it to some degree, but, like, picked up back-to-back fouls, fumbled the ball a couple times, missed a lay. And, like, look, Peyton might be a good player. Like, you're not asking Peyton Marshall to be the reason you win an NCAA tournament game this year. I'm not trying to insult the kid or be too hard on him. But no, I don't think he can. Can you steal a couple minutes? Yes. But ultimately, it's got to be Gray and Mitchell. And I think that's why Mitchell didn't play tonight. Because, guys, can you imagine if Mitchell played and 6 minutes into that game, he limps off the floor and then he doesn't play next week? Like, you couldn't risk it unless he was 100% and you were sure that what happened last night wasn't going to be an issue tonight. It's why I think it was the right call to sacrifice this game for next week. All right, let's head to the voicemail line and hit a couple of the callers real quick while we've got a minute.
Gabe, this is Coach Matt, the king of fish fries. I liked seeing some of the youngsters in tonight. I thought Barrett and Marshall gave them a spark when they were playing early. Would have liked to see Marshall come in when Gray got the boot. But anyway, some good things, some bad things. Looking forward to next week. MIZ.
I'll agree with you on T.O. Barrett. T.O. Barrett has shown me that he can be your starting point guard next year, and you can move Ant Robinson to shooting guard. I mean, T.O. Barrett was getting in the paint nonstop. Now, he needs to spend the entire offseason working on a 15-foot jump shot, because if he can develop that, like, not to a lethal point, not to Tamar Bates level, even, just like kind of he can hit it 45% of the time, then he becomes lethal. Really like seeing what T.O. Barrett did tonight. And I do think T.O. Barrett can give you minutes in the NCAA tournament. If Ant gets in foul trouble, I'm okay with T.O. Barrett playing some minutes. We don't see Marshall the same way. That's fine. I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. I don't see it quite yet. All right, let's hit the next call.
I don't know what's more wild, the fact that Florida hasn't missed a shot, Mizzou can't buy a three, or the fact that it's still only an 8-point game in the second half. At some point, next week in the tournament, Gates is just going to have to keep his best players on the floor and have them win the game. You're putting Peyton Marshall in the game. You're putting, T.O. Barrett in the game. You're putting freshmen in the game. And then, he leaves them out there too long and then they get exposed. And, would that have changed this game? I don't think so. But next week, in tournament, I think you have to live and die with your best players.
I think that's a fair point. I agree with all of that. I spent a lot of this game tonight. Like, I remember when Missouri was lighting up Alabama. Like, Missouri was playing perfect offense, playing as well as Missouri can possibly play. And you look up and go, how's this a 9-point game? Alabama was staying in it. Missouri was kind of doing the same thing tonight, right? Like, Florida shot 65% in this game. And it was not over until about 2.5 minutes left. They never got it to a 1-possession game. Every time they got close, Florida found the answer it had to have. But it seemed like last night we talked at halftime, it felt like Missouri should have been up 15. At halftime, it felt like Missouri should have been down 25. And they came out and scored the first 5 points of the second half, and it was an 8-point game. And so I agree, and I do agree with the last part of that call. You are now at the point, like, all right, you want to go T.O. Barrett for a couple minutes. I'm good with it. You need to steal a few minutes, whether it's Marquez Warwick or whether you think Jacob Cruz, Trent Pierce, whoever. You want to steal a few minutes here and there. But like Tamar Bates got to play 30 every game. Caleb Grill got to play 30 every game. Mark Mitchell got to play 30 every game. Tony Perkins and Ant Robinson got to play 25 every game. Like, those are your guys. Those are your best players. And I understand you have to mix and match some Josh Gray in there, some Pierce in there, all that. But Grill, Bates, Robinson, Perkins, Pierce. Perkins, Grill, Bates, Perkins, Mitchell, Robinson. Those are the 5 guys that are going to determine where you go. Now, that doesn't mean other guys can't contribute to a win, can't be a part of it. We've seen it happen, right? Like, there may be a night where Aiden Shaw saves you like he did last night, or there may be a night where, you get more shots out of Jacob Cruz than usual. So I'm not saying you exclusively play those 5 guys, but I agree. Like, those are the guys you have to ride with this team. And if it beats you, it beats you. But you have to ride with the guys that got you there. All right, let's see what's up next on the voicemail.
So he plays Marshall at the beginning of the game for no reason, really. And then when he needs Marshall to play, because Florida has 3 7-footers on the floor, he doesn't play Marshall or Shaw or Pierce. Like, I have no idea what he was doing at the end of the game.
Okay, so we're talking about really the last 5 minutes. If you want to argue Trent Pierce should have been in the game at that point, I'll listen to that. I don't think Trent Pierce makes a real difference on interior defense and rebounding, and I base that on having watched him play all year. Trent Pierce is a 6'11" guard. He is a 3 inches taller Jacob Cruz, to be quite honest. If his outside shot's not going, where is it? Also, he can't make a free throw. So I understand why he wasn't in. Shaw and Marshall, you had to score at that point. You're behind. It was an 8 or 9 point game, I think. You had to, without Mitchell and Gray, you don't have a lineup that can give you offense and defense, right? So if he puts, the game ended on a 20-10 run for Florida. Let's say Shaw and or Marshall are out there. Cool, you might hold Florida to 12, but you're going to score 4 because those guys aren't offensive threats. I mean, they're just like, I don't know what he could have done in the last 5 minutes. He could have died a different way, but he was still going to die. With no Mitchell and with Gray out of that game, there simply isn't a lineup on that roster that you were going to outscore Florida by 8 points in the last 5 minutes, barring Florida missing a bunch of free throws or just turning the ball over. And every time Florida was missing the shot, they got the ball back. And again, the argument is, we'll put somebody in there who can get it. Cool, but then you're going to the other end and you're not scoring. I know it's not fun to just say sometimes the other team just has better guys. Florida just has better guys, or at least more of them, right? I mean, Walter Clayton and Will Richard take over the first half, and then Thomas Houck and Congdon and Handloten take over the second half. I mean, there's not a weakness on that Florida team. They have one of the best front courts in America, an all-American guard, and 2 other great shooters. There's not a weakness. The fact that Missouri beat that team this year it's Missouri's best win of the year. I don't think there's any question. Beat them there. And then the fact that tonight, without their most important player, they took them to the last 5 minutes, really. So, Missouri plays Florida again. Florida's probably beating them. Florida beats them, I'd say 8 out of 10. Because I think Florida beats almost everybody 8 out of 10. Except maybe Auburn, Duke, Houston. They're in that. I think they're that. That's a team that can win a national title. And there's a reason they were second in the best conference in the country, and they were the only team that beat Auburn. I mean, what you saw tonight was the seedings over the course of the year worked out. I don't know how Alabama, Kentucky will go, but Auburn was better than Ole Miss. Auburn played like a C+ game and beat Ole Miss. At Texas, it just was, that was coasting for Tennessee. I don't think tonight was coasting for Florida, but Florida's better than Missouri. Florida's going to beat Missouri most nights. Give Missouri credit that they managed to get one against Florida earlier in this season. All right, let's go to another call. I imagine we'll get Drew in here in the next 10 minutes or so.
Hi, this is Scott in Colorado Springs. I'm watching the Mizzou game, second half. My question in the first half was the way Clayton was killing us. Why didn't we put our best defensive player, Robinson, on him? I was pleased that they finally did it in the second half, and I think what we got from Robinson then was, 3 steals, almost a 4th steal, forced Clayton to throw it away once, blew by him for a slam on another possession. What took so long for that to happen? Why didn't we just start the game with our best defensive player on their best offensive player? Unfortunately, it's not doing much good because as soon as we get it down to about 6, Florida takes it back down to about 12. I guess they're just too deep and good inside. They're just killing us because we're undersized. But that was my big question about Robinson and Clayton.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Scott. I would have to go back and look. I don't know at the beginning whose defensive assignment Clayton was. I don't remember how much man, how much zone. I'd have to go back and look. I can't accurately really even answer that question. I thought, Missouri did do a really nice job in the second half on Walter Clayton for a really long time. But then, that's when the interior guys started to hurt him. I mean, second half, Elijah Martin has 12 points in the second half, 5 for 5, another guard. Alex Condon, 8 points, 4 of 8 shooting, 4 rebounds in the second half. Thomas Houck, 8 points, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds. So Walter Clayton had 1 point in the second half. He did nothing. You took him out of the game, and Florida had other guys. I mean, that, like you said, they're deep. They just had too many guys for Missouri tonight. Like, cool, you want to take away our All-American guard and take him out of the game? There we go. All right, Drew just texted me from Nashville. Dennis Gates on Mark Mitchell. He wanted to be out there with his team. I did not let him. I just did not want to jeopardize anything. And I'll be honest, guys, I haven't really seen anybody arguing much with that. Like, could you have won this game with Mark Mitchell and continued to play and everything would have been awesome and he was perfectly healthy? Certainly possible. But again, if he limps off the court in the first half of that game, like, Dennis Gates can't recover from that with this fan base. I mean, it is err on the side of caution. You know, it is understand that it was going to be very, very difficult to win this game without Mitchell, but you are playing for next Thursday or Friday and then next Saturday or Sunday much more than you were playing for tonight. Not that you're not trying to win this game. Of course you're trying to win this game. But I understand what Dennis Gates did, and it seems like I think most of you guys do as well. All right, let's go to the next one.
Hey, Gabe, longtime listener, first-time caller. Don't really know what's going on with Josh Gray. He looks lost, to be quite frank. He's wandering around aimlessly on defense, can't find his man. He's totally inept on offense. I'm pretty sure that he can't make anything happen if it's outside of 5 feet. I don't know what he brings to the team. I really don't know why he's taking up valuable minutes. Well, I know why, because there's no other options. But how do we get to this point where he's the only person that we can go to in the paint? And also, what's going on with him being above the three-point arc, facilitating ball movement? Why is that a thing? Anyway, appreciate it, Gabe. Hopefully we have some better luck going into the tourney.
So I'll address both questions. What he brings is rebounding, period. He had 12 rebounds in 21 minutes last night. He prevents what happened in the last 4 minutes from happening to you, which is just throw the ball at the rim and the other team's going to get it even if it misses. And how did we get to this point? It's real simple. Mark Mitchell didn't play. I mean, it's that easy, guys. Missouri's best, not best necessarily. You could argue best, but most important player did not play in a game against a team that's probably going to be a 1 seed. I mean, it's just not that complicated, right? You can get frustrated. I understand being frustrated because there were times in that game where it's like you get one more shot to fall, 2 more shots to fall, then we've got a different thing happening. But they played that game without their most important player. And you saw what it looks like without him. Like, they don't have a guy over, they don't have a guy over 6'5" that can score inside without him. I mean, Jacob Cruz is not going down in the paint and scoring. Trent Pierce is not going down in the paint and scoring. Anthony Robinson, Tamar Bates, Tony Perkins all did a really nice job of getting in the paint and finishing and scoring some points. But that's a different way of going about it. Like, the easiest way to score in the paint is if you have a guy you can just throw the ball to and say, go score. And without Mark Mitchell, Missouri doesn't have that. Drew just texted me he's going to be on shortly. So let's try to hit one more voicemail while he's getting set up.
Dennis Gates, please call a freaking timeout when you see Anthony Robinson on the floor like that. I mean, right before half, we have 2 timeouts left. It's like 20 seconds left. He's on the floor for maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds, it seems like, and you just don't call a timeout. Help the kid out, please. Dennis Gates, please call
I thought the same thing. I thought Missouri should have called a timeout there, whether it's Gates or whether it's Robinson. Now, in their defense, they only had 2 left at that point because they had used 2, like, trying to stop Florida's run at the beginning of the game. So I understand to some extent why it wasn't called, but I agreed. Whether it's, I mean, and again, the player can call a timeout. Like, Ant's laying there on the floor. He can call a timeout. So can the coach. And I would have called a timeout there too. I'm just saying, And in the end, like, that didn't really kill them. I mean, yeah, they going down 13 at half, but they still got back within 4. Like, that play, like, I think we do this a lot, right? Where we pick out a play in the first half, and I don't know, that was a 4-point game. Even the 15-2 run isn't exactly what beat them. I mean, it was in some ways because they could never completely overcome it, but that was a weird play. But I don't think it changed the game. All right, Drew King live with us from Nashville in the staging area at Bridgestone Arena. All right, opening thoughts and kind of what you got out of postgame tonight.
Yeah, so for starters, I would say that this quote kind of summed it up from Dennis Gates, which was, we didn't hit our goal, which was to win the SEC tournament, right? Like, obviously, they wanted to do better than what they did this week. But if you're looking for a silver lining, he said, we were missing our all-SEC player for a game and a half, and I thought we played pretty well. So I think that's a pretty fair summation of the past 2 games. There were a lot of unsung heroes in both contests. And I think that Mizzou, confidence-wise, is where it should be heading into the NCAA tournament. So I think that they're still in a good spot. Obviously, this game wasn't their best performance of the year. But there's a lot of challenges when you lose a player like Mark Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree with all that. They did what they accomplished. They accomplished what they came here to accomplish. I feel better about them than I felt about them 3 days ago. I mean, they made Florida work for 35 minutes without their most important player, and frankly, in a game where, I mean, they missed shot. Like, Caleb Grill and Jacob Cruz both had shots that, like, they've just got to make. They could change that game, and they didn't make them, right? And then Missouri missed a lot of layup. Like, Missouri had chances. And I think Missouri both missed some of those chances, but I said earlier, like, you have to give Florida credit that every time Florida had to find an answer, Florida found that answer. Like, Missouri would get it to 6, and then it was 11 again. Missouri would get it to 5, and then it was 12 again. They just always had an answer, and I think what we saw tonight was a legitimate national title contender versus a legitimate top 20 to 25 team.
Absolutely. And Gabe, it's a lot easier to come up with an answer when you start off with that 13-point lead, right?
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of these punches that Mizzou had could have been knockout punches had they gotten off to a better start tonight, in my opinion, right? Like, because they kept building that momentum up. And like you said, Florida was able to figure things out without surrendering the lead every time. And I think that's what kept killing Mizzou, was they just couldn't get over the hump. But it's because they put themselves at the bottom of the hump to begin with. So
right.
That's kind of the biggest red flag for me, is just like, if they're playing from behind out of the get-go, that can be a challenge for them. But other than that, like, I think you still got to feel decently good about them right now.
Is it unfair that my opinion of that start was kind of a team that looked like, well, we don't have Mark. I'm not sure how we can get this done.
No, that's not unfair at all, because that's kind of what my thought was too. Was they just came out so flat, and it felt like,
I mean, that Josh Gray flagrant foul after the turnover you went from 3-0 to 8-0. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
I mean,
and I thought it was intentional.
You thought it was intentional? I didn't, Gabe, and I'll tell you why. He didn't even see Walter Clayton, who's about a foot shorter than him. So okay. I think that he just kind of waved his hand, trying to box him out, and clipped his head. So I don't think it was intentional. I do think it was just
with two hands.
He did grab his face. I didn't see the second hand, but I agree that it should have been a flagrant.
But it was a big play. Like, it put you 8-0 when it was.
And Josh really shouldn't have been in that position to begin with because Florida came around and just tipped the ball up from him, right? So, yeah, like that's probably the worst start imaginable from Missouri, especially when you know you're missing your leading scorer and it's gonna already be a big challenge to hang with Florida. But again, like once they settled in, Mizzou went toe to toe with them for the rest of the night. And so if they can play like that, and then also get Mark Mitchell back, I kind of like what this team is going into the most important time of the season.
From the 15-minute mark of the first half to the 5-minute mark of the second half, Mizzou played exactly the game it wanted to play. It was driving the lane. It was helter-skelter. It was kind of a sloppy playground game. It was exactly the game they wanted. The problem is in those other 10 minutes, they got outscored at 35-17.
Yeah.
I mean,
and again, like there's a lot of positives you can take away from it, even with the loss, right? So like Missouri, 31-32 on the boards, had 18 offensive rebounds, and
they had the rebounding battle won until they played Jacob Cruz at center trying to score in the last 5. Like, and I'm not blaming Gates. Like we were talking earlier, like once Josh Gray fouled out, there was not a lineup he could play that was going to solve it, because you either go small and try to score and get killed on the boards, or you're playing Aiden Shaw and Peyton Marshall and you're not going to score.
Right. Yeah. And that's why the depth is important, right? Like, and we said that Josh Gray was a guy who was probably going to have to play pretty well going into it. So, it was a lot to overcome for them tonight. And Florida's not a team that lets you overcome a lot.
Right. Like Florida's legit national title good. I mean, the depth is impressive everywhere except one spot, man. Like, I mean, we saw tonight how thin they are in the front court. And I say front court, I don't even say big man. Yeah. Because without Mitchell, like Trent Pierce isn't a forward. Jacob Cruz isn't a forward. I don't care what the height and the roster say. They aren't. They don't play down there. So if it's not Mitchell and Gray, I don't know, man.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I don't know if you already said this, but it does sound like Mitchell's fine and wanted to play tonight.
So let's, I read your text on it. Let's go to that. Okay. Right call by Dennis Gates?
I do think so. We talked about it this morning, how if you don't think he's at 100%, there's no reason to put him at risk going into this one. So if that was what Gates thought, then I can't disagree with him.
It's the right call because, as I've said on here a couple times, if he plays Mark and Mark limps off in the first half and he can't play next week, I mean, I don't know that Dennis recovers from that with the fan base. Like,
right.
It's the right call because you don't have any idea what might have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And at least this way you controlled what happened.
Right. And so now the assumption is you've got him back for NCAA tournament next week, whenever you play Tuesday or Wednesday, or whenever they play. Thursday. I don't know, Gabe. When do they play?
Well, nobody's going to know. It'll either be Thursday or Friday.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
We'll find out Sunday night. Yeah.
So, but you're going to get him back regardless. And again, like, given how they played without him, I think that's a pretty good spot to be in. So he's a guy who can obviously take the team up another level. And they played at a pretty good level for the majority of tonight.
How worried are you about Caleb Grill?
Man, honestly,
like
not.
1 to 10.
1 to 10, probably like a 3.
Okay, I'm like a 6.
Okay, can I tell you why I'm at a 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're coming off of a 3-game stretch where we're saying, man, what the heck is wrong with Tamar Bates? And then these past 2 games, he comes in and he puts up 25 the first night, has another good game tonight, 16 points. So, I'm not going to say that, like, Caleb Grill has played exorbitantly well this weekend, but, like, he's allowed to have some rough shooting nights. He hasn't been the fiery flamethrower I'm gonna hit 6 threes a night guy in a minute, but doesn't mean he can't be. Like we know he has that ability.
Yes. Now can I tell you why I'm at a 6 and
Go
maybe
ahead.
bordering on a 7?
Yeah.
Because it's not 3 games. Here is Caleb Grill's 3-point shooting starting February 15th against Georgia. 2 for 9, 3 for 9, 2 for 12, 4 for 6, 3 for 11, 4 for 11, 2 for 6, 1 for 8, 2 for 7. That's 10 games. He's 21 for 79. That's a third of the season. That scares me.
Okay. Yeah, no, you made your point.
Because I think Missouri can win its first round game if Caleb's 2 for 8 from 3-point range. I don't think Missouri can do anything significant if he's 2 for 8 because he's not going to stop shooting, and he probably shouldn't. But man, I think I would have liked to see him take more 2s tonight. Like get mid-range, get to the rim, because it just I don't know. I wrote an instant reaction. Earlier this year, I said there's no such thing as a bad shot for him. I think there is now, and I think he's taken some of them.
Yeah, that's fair. But like you said, if the team's going to get where it wants to be, they do have to have Caleb shooting those shots, right? And in addition, like Dennis Gates has brought this up a couple of times, he takes up so much of the defensive attention. Like teams are not going to let him spring himself open at all, right? And that's right. Really helped open up things for Mark Mitchell inside. And I think that's what, because it's the same period of time, right? Like Caleb Grill has not been shooting as well, but Mark Mitchell has.
So he gets all that attention and he draws everyone to him. What if instead of shooting 9, he shoots 4? And the other 5 possessions, that ball either goes to Tamar Bates or it goes inside.
I guess
the threat of him shooting is as big as him actually shooting. You see what I'm saying?
So. No, but I disagree with that, because I think that teams are guarding him like he's still going to shoot 6 for 10 on any given night.
Right, but they're guarding him like that regardless of whether he's actually shooting the ball or not. So get him the ball out there. They're guarding him that way. Cool. Kick it to somebody else. Reverse it,
But
throw it inside to Josh Gray.
That's the thing. It's like, who are you going to? Because we talked earlier today. We said, okay, Mark Mitchell's at the top of the pyramid. Level 2 is him or Bates. And then if it's not one of them two, like nobody else has been consistent.
I'm pretty confident in Perkins. The best thing I saw this week, if this is their backcourt going forward, I will take Perkins, Ant, and Tamar in a whole lot of matchups.
And those 3 guys were kind of like non-existent in their 3 losses to end the regular season.
Yeah.
And so that's got to give you a lot of confidence, knowing that they're finding a groove when it matters here. So I think that's another silver lining out of the tournament.
Yeah. Curious if they talk at all about, seeding, NCAA tournament, anything like that?
Not really. And I didn't really think to ask it. Dennis Gates just said, hopefully they pick us on Sunday, which I don't think is going to be an issue.
This would be an all-time snub if Missouri was not in the NCAA tournament. So, all right, I think we still got a few voicemails left. You want to stick around? And the people have been pretty reasonable tonight.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to stick around.
All right, Billy, let's go ahead.
All right, Gabe. I know you don't like to do this, and I know you don't like to blame refs, but I have never seen such a poorly officiated first half as I did tonight. And there's 2 clear examples I can think off right off the top of my head. That shot clock beating 3 that Cruz put up, he was 100% fouled on that. The Bates jumper on the right wing, 100% fouled on that. You're telling me that on all of those guard drives, with all of that contact, not a single one in the first half got to the line after Perkins in the first 2 minutes. We were putting a rock in a hard place with the whistle going the way it was. There was a phantom call on Perkins in the half where his arm went over the guy's head and he didn't touch him at all. That the foul that Gray fouled out on, I didn't see it. I guess he went to the body, but I mean, it was lighter contact all day. And my only complaint, for the Tigers, besides just going cold and not having Mitchell and getting Gray fouled out, is I probably would have pulled small ball out after 6 points given up. But, I mean, what else are you going to do? It was the best chance to come back. But this loss is on the officials and fouling out and Pierce not being able to be comfortable on the team and play. MIZ.
Okay, this loss was not on the officials. If I can list 10 reasons Missouri lost this game, maybe officiating sneaks in at 10th, but I'm not even sure it gets there. Look, we can go through every single game and nitpick a call and yes, they miss some calls. They always miss some calls. There's no question. But here's the thing. First of all, I don't even remember the two plays he's talking about, so I'll trust him. I don't know. Maybe those were missed calls. But when Florida has the ball, you're not looking for missed calls. You're not looking for – you just go, oh, yeah, good call. At halftime, Florida had taken 11 free throws and Missouri had taken 8. Was that grossly unfair officiating? Were they on the short end of a couple calls? Maybe. Was it grossly unfair? No. And in the part of the reason they came back, Drew, was, I mean – now, Missouri was doing some slapping on defense, and they weren't calling much of it, and credit to Missouri. If they're going to let you do it, do it. But the second half whistle, I mean, Missouri was in the bonus and had committed 3 fouls. I think the second half whistle pretty clearly for a good amount of time favored Missouri. And the thing is, this is an argument you can't win because, I just, if you believe the officials cost Missouri the game, I can't convince you otherwise.
Yeah, I agree with that. I got asked something similar when I went to Tiger Club a week and a half ago, and I just told them, listen, officiating's terrible everywhere. You're not going to find...
And there are times it loses games.
Sure.
Tonight wasn't one.
Yeah. So, there were... To be fair, a couple where I was like, wow, Missouri really got hosed on that call. But I'm sure that if you're a Florida fan, you can say that about a couple of calls too. I'm not here to keep track of tit for tat, how is the game being officiated.
Right.
I just assume that these refs are awful and everybody's going to be upset at the end of the night.
Yeah. Both teams think they got screwed in almost every game. And this is the perfect example for Tearsell. I mean, the call where they sent Peyton Marshall to the line was that was a terrible call. I don't know if you remember it, Drew, but Peyton Marshall dropped the ball and then the guy kind of bumped into him, but the ball was already on the floor and they sent him to the, I couldn't even figure out what they called at first. So it happens to benefit your team too, is the point.
Yeah. I sort of remember the play. I didn't have a great angle on it, but I was just oh.
It was absolutely hilarious. I actually thought at that point, well, Missouri's going to win because if they're getting these calls, they're actually gonna make this comeback. So the point is, I promise if you watch that, if you put a Missouri fan and a Florida fan in a room and watch that game, both fans think their team got screwed by the officials. And both fans will point out 8 calls that their team didn't get. And you're probably right. You probably didn't get 8 calls, and they probably also didn't get 8 calls. There are times when the officials beat you. Tonight wasn't. It wasn't. And Missouri, again, most of the year, Missouri has shot more free throw or has made more free throws than its opponents have attempted. And yet, even in all of those games, most people thought Missouri got screwed by officiating.
Yeah.
There's just no way to, you can't, it's not, you can't have a reasonable conversation about it. It's pointless, which is why I almost never do it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's keep going on.
Gabe, John from Kansas City here. I'm sure that about 10 minutes ago, you said something to the effect of, guys, it wasn't the refs that lost this one. What lost this one was Josh Gray fouling out with 8 minutes, something. Gabe, I don't understand what the Tigers are supposed to do if, when they do not make contact with a Florida player, they are called for a foul. It has happened 3 different times during this game. I know that Mizzou would not have won this game if it had been 5-on-5. I know that, but it was 5-on-8, and there's absolutely nothing that the Tigers can do about that. Grill hits a massive 3 just at the under 4, and he looks empty. He looks defeated because he knows that he's up against 3 additional players on the other team. I would just love an off-season feature, truly. Is there any sort of accountability for refs at the end of a game? At the end of a season? Is there a tiered ranking system? Do they get rated? Is there
good.
any
I'm
sort
good, Billy? I'm good. Point proven. Thank you, John, for proving the point.
If you'll give me just a second, I can pull up Ken Palm's referee rankings for this game.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I got them right now. Y'all ready for this? All right. Tonight we had Terry Oglesby, who is the 5th best ranked, the 5th best referee in the country. He was assisted by Courtney Green, checking in at number 27. And
I went to college with Courtney Green. It was not that Courtney Green, though.
Okay. I was gonna say that's impressive. But and rounding out the crew was Jeb Hartness, who is number 36. So you got 3 top 40 refs in there, guys. I don't know what else you want from
you know what? Here's my reaction. Imagine how bad everybody from 37 on down must be. All right, Billy, let's go to the next call.
Tough loss for the Tigers now. I always hope they'd win. I hope Mizzou wins every night. But I mean, digging yourself in a really bad hole early didn't help. And I mean, at this stage, especially when you're going to be playing good teams night in, night out, you got to have your A+ game, or at least your A game. And I mean, honestly, for Missouri, I'd say the consensus on the night, they probably had their C+, maybe B- game, and that just wasn't good enough to beat Florida. I mean, people complain about this guy shouldn't play, but I mean, I thought it was a formidable effort. I would have liked to see in that second half, once like Gray got in foul trouble and fouled out, them go to Peyton Marshall, because I was kind of encouraged by Marshall in what he did, but it was just one of those games where Missouri would get within 5 or 6 or 7, and then they could just never get that next stop. And I mean, give credit to Florida. They're really good. Again, they shot the ball really well to start the game. And again, they led from start to finish. Missouri never led in this game. I mean, I think these 2 games here at the SEC tournament, I think they have been encouraging in their own ways. I mean, Missouri forced a lot of turnovers tonight. They weren't able to capitalize on most of them, it seemed like. A lot of missed shots at the rim. But, I mean, overall, I mean, I'm excited maybe for what Missouri has in the SEC tournament. I think they can make it to the second weekend. I mean, beyond that, I don't know. But I'll be looking forward to it. Go Tigers.
Drew, what had you laughing so hysterically?
Michael in the comments said top 40 blind mice.
Okay. I assumed that was it. And like, look, we have acknowledged that they all suck, right? Like, yes. I'll say this though. Like, if you were able to put slow motion replay to every decision I make on my job in the course of a day, like I would probably also look terrible.
Top 40 comment, Michael. Thank you.
All right. So he said tonight was a C+ or B- game. Do you think that's accurate?
I would say this is more of a B+ game, just that you didn't have one of your best players out there.
Right. Considering what was available, I think B+ is pretty fit. Could have been better, but like, could you have really expected better without Mitchell? And I think the other problem is, like, I kind of want to say Florida played an A game, but also they didn't, because they kicked the ball all over the place for about 25 minutes. I mean, if you look at the box score, like, take away field goal percentage, and like, I think you would think Missouri won that game, but it was just Florida just 62%. You're not you're not beating a team that with Florida's talent that shoots 62%. I'd be curious on your thought on this, Drew. If those two teams play 10 games, how many does Missouri win?
Is Mark Mitchell available?
Sure.
Okay. If they played 10 games, I think I'd probably go like 60-40. Like I think Mizzou wins probably 4 of them.
I said 2 or 3. Without Mark Mitchell, how many do they win?
Without Mark Mitchell, probably 2.
Yeah. I think that's fair. So, all right, Billy. I don't know how many more calls we got left. If we got some, let's power through them. And Drew, if you want to stay for them, you're welcome to. If you want to leave because you've got a million things to do, I also can accept.
What do I got to do? I got all night.
Okay, you got nothing but time. All right, let's power through them.
I don't know what's more wild, the fact that Florida hasn't missed a shot, Mizzou can't buy a 3, or the fact that it's still only an 8-point game.
I feel like we
in
heard
the
this one.
second half.
I feel like we heard this one, so let's go to the next one.
They lost, so now they can go back to the drawing board, get healthy, get ready for the tournament. Hopefully they can make a deep run. I mean, I think Dennis is a good coach. He do what he can. They had a shaky start in the beginning. That came out the half doing okay, but then they just kind of all over the place. That offense is, I don't know. I mean, but it's fun when the shots are going in. I'll tell you that. I love the Kansas game. That's a good example of this, but hopefully they can make that deep run in the tournament. I think Dennis going to make something happen. So we're going to see. I'm ready to call off work and watch tournament games all week. So hopefully Mizzou can make it worthwhile. MIC. They lost.
I just want to say this. I wish that caller would have left his name because, like, I would have him read me stories. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to his voice.
Great voicemail voice.
Yeah. Well done. Please leave us more voicemails. All right. I think we got maybe one more.
Gabe, Tiger Terry.
Oh, thank goodness.
One thing I got to say about this game, Gabe, is it don't matter a lick. All right, we don't care about the SEC championship. We care about March. Got to let this one roll like water off a duck's back. Okay, fans? No need to worry. This team is fighting. They didn't give up. They clawed their way back multiple times against one of the best teams in the country. Ty Gold might be a chump, but his boys can play. One complaint I have is the same. We tried to force it to Peyton Marshall. God bless Peyton Marshall. He's a sweet boy, and he might be a good player someday, but he's not exactly Shaquille O'Neal right now. Okay, prayers for Mark Mitchell. We're ready for March. We're back. Dennis is going to have the boys ready. We want a Final Four. Fight, Tiger.
Peyton Marshall might be a sweet boy is one of my favorite comments of the evening. Well done, Tiger Terry.
I liked water rolling off a duck's back. Never heard that one before.
You've never heard that before?
I have not heard that one before.
That is, that's a good one. Look, leave it to Tiger Terry to bring us wisdom as we wrap up our final post-game show from Nashville. Sunday night, what do we expect, Drew?
I think after seeing the bracket projections today, I think it might be a 7 seed. And I apologize to everyone who's hearing that. But it like just seeing what people were putting out after the Mississippi State win today, I saw a lot of 7s.
That's interesting. I think they should be a 6. But again, I'm also going to say if they are a 7, like that's your fault for losing to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. I'm not like if they're a 7, I don't think you can like scream and cry that you should have been a 6. I think they should be a 6, but if they're a 7, like the reason is those 2 games.
Yeah. And like this is gonna sound really nerdy. I like copy and pasted like the seedings from just today's brackets that came out, right? And then I put them in a spreadsheet and took the average of just those brackets. And it wasn't like the average seed wasn't any higher than where it's already at. So either people like just ignored the Mississippi State win or didn't think it counted for very much or haven't really considered it yet. Those are kind of the 3 possibilities.
Yeah, interesting. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm expecting a 6, but I'm also expecting whatever is the a freaking 12:30 a.m. game in Providence on Monday morning or something. So we'll see what happens. All right, Drew. Appreciate it. Travel safely back tomorrow, and
There's supposed to be a
hey, you
tornado, so
oh sweet.
we'll see. Hopefully, I might
Tonight
take
or tomorrow?
tomorrow morning. I don't
Okay,
know
well,
about the morning, but tomorrow there's supposed to be a tornado.
okay, well, like if you have to stay, or like if you have to drive north to Detroit and then come back here on Sunday, whatever, just keep me posted. Don't try to drive through a tornado. It would be
Well,
dumb.
what's really been interesting is people are talking about it like it's inbound, like the
Right.
tornado's already formed and it's on its way to Nashville, like Godzilla.
So we were supposed to get terrible weather here. It was windy for like an hour and a half, and it stormed. But here's my favorite tornado story. I just like to tell this. So I was in line at a gas station one time, and we were like under a tornado warning or whatever. There was going to be severe weather, right? And the guy in front of me told the gas station clerk that we were safe from the tornado because we live in the city and tornadoes don't hit cities. It's like tornadoes see the buildings and they're like, oh shit, we can't go there, man. We got to turn. We got to go out here in these vacant fields. Like, fuck them cows. We're going to get them, but we can't hit these people. I don't know. It was the worst explanation for weather I've ever heard.
Yeah, that adds up. I feel like
I mean, my grandma lived in Joplin in 2011. I can promise you that tornadoes hit cities. It happens.
And there's one coming to Nashville tomorrow.
Apparently it's right outside the arena, so look out. All right, well, I feel like that's the official. Tiger Terry has spoken. We've told stupid tornado stories. I feel like we're done. So
Cook says, what has better odds, a tornado in Nashville or Drew King going 2-7 on the road?
Well, right now you're 1-8, aren't you?
Correct.
So you can't be 2-7. So I'm going with the tornado. All right. So appreciate you guys. Drew, have a good night, man. Drew will have full coverage. I've got video interviews from the locker room from Connor McLean. I'll get posted after this. I'll put this on the podcast. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all of those good things. Get in touch with our friend. Well, don't just call Bruning Law Firm just for the hell of it. Like, if you actually need their services, if you're in a situation where you are in need of a personal injury attorney, we encourage that to be.
If there's a tornado.
Law Firm. 100%, like sue the shit out of that tornado. If you call up Bruning on Monday and say, look, this tornado hit me, I'm pissed about it, you gotta get me. But in all seriousness, if you find yourself in this situation where you do need a personal injury attorney, you live in Missouri, Kansas, or Illinois, you can call them for a free consultation at 573-400-2796. Once again, 573-400-2796. Tell them the tornado sent you, and we will talk to you guys next time.